The rhythmic pounding of Ethan Granger's designer running shoes echoed through the pristine streets of Oakwood Estates. Manicured lawns and towering mansions blurred past as he pushed himself harder, desperate to outrun the emptiness that clung to him like a second skin. A tug on his sleeve jerked Ethan from his thoughts. He stumbled, nearly colliding with a small boy who'd materialized beside him. "You're in my dad's photo." The child thrust a worn picture toward Ethan's face. Ethan blinked, sweat stinging his eyes as he focused on the image. His breath caught. A younger version of himself stared back, arms slung around a man who could only be his brother Daniel. "Where did you get this?" Ethan's voice came out harsher than intended. The boy's eyes widened. "My dad keeps it in a box with all the other old pictures. I'm Max. Are you really my uncle?" Ethan's world tilted. He hadn't spoken to Daniel in over a decade. Now his brother's son stood before him, a living reminder of all he'd left behind. "Yes, I suppose I am." The words felt foreign on his tongue. Max's face lit up. "You have to come meet my dad. He never talks about you, but I bet he'd be so excited." Before Ethan could protest, Max grabbed his hand, tugging him down the street. They left the gated community behind, the houses growing smaller and less ostentatious with each block. "We're here." Max bounded up the steps of a modest two-story home, its paint peeling and gutters sagging. Ethan hesitated at the bottom of the porch. "Max, I don't think this is a good idea, dash." The front door swung open. Daniel Granger stood frozen in the doorway, his face a mask of shock that quickly morphed to anger. "Max, get inside." Daniel's voice was low, dangerous. "But Dad, look who I found. It's Uncle Ethan." Max beamed, oblivious to the tension crackling between the two men. Daniel's jaw clenched. "I can see that. Inside. Now." Max's smile faltered, but he obeyed, shooting a confused look over his shoulder as he disappeared into the house. The brothers stared at each other, years of unspoken hurt and resentment hanging in the air between them. Ethan cleared his throat. "Daniel, I dash. Save it." Daniel's words cut like ice. "What are you doing here, Ethan? Come to see how the other half lives." Ethan flinched. It wasn't intentional. "Max recognized me from an old photo. He insisted I come meet you." Daniel's laugh was bitter. "Of course. You'd never lower yourself to visit on your own, would you? That's not fair." Ethan took a step forward. "I've wanted to reach out, but dash." "But what? You were too busy counting your millions. Forgot you had a family." Daniel's fists clenched at his sides. "It's been 10 years, Ethan. Where were you when Dad died? When Lily dash?" His voice broke. Ethan's stomach twisted. "I didn't know about Lily." "Daniel, I'm so sorry. Your sympathy's a little late." Daniel turned away, his shoulders slumping. "Just go, Ethan. We've managed fine without you all this time." Ethan glanced at the peeling paint, the overgrown lawn. "Have you?" "Because from where I'm standing, dash." Daniel whirled, his fist connecting with Ethan's jaw before either of them realized what was happening. Ethan stumbled back, tasting blood. "You don't get to judge my life." Daniel advanced, eyes blazing. "You walked away. You chose money over family. Now you want to waltz back in and play the concerned brother." Ethan raised his hands, backpedaling. "I'm not judging Daniel. I'm offering to help. We don't need your charity." Daniel lunged again, but this time Ethan was ready. He sidestepped, grabbing Daniel's arm and using his momentum to spin him around. The brothers grappled on the lawn, years of pent-up anger and hurt fueling their blows. They rolled across the grass, trading punches and insults in equal measure. "Stop it." Max's terrified cry cut through the haze of their fight. The boy stood on the porch, tears streaming down his face. "Please don't hurt each other." Daniel and Ethan froze, shame washing over them as they took in Max's distress. They untangled themselves, chests heaving as they climbed to their feet. "I'm sorry, buddy." Daniel's voice was gentle as he approached his son. "Uncle Ethan and I just had a disagreement. Everything's okay now." Max sniffled, looking between the two men. Can Uncle Ethan stay for dinner? Please. Daniel hesitated, conflict clear on his face. Ethan held his breath, suddenly desperate for this chance to reconnect. Fine. Daniel relented with a sigh. But just dinner. Then he's leaving. Max's face lit up. He grabbed Ethan's hand, pulling him toward the house. Come on, Uncle Ethan. I want to show you my room. As they crossed the threshold, Ethan was struck by the warmth of the home. Family photos lined the walls, and the air smelled of home-cooked meals and laughter. It was everything his sterile mansion lacked. While Max chattered excitedly about his favorite toys, Ethan's gaze was drawn to a box of old photographs on a nearby shelf. A folded letter peeked out from beneath the stack of pictures. What's this? Ethan reached for the letter, his heart skipping a beat as he recognized their father's handwriting. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his expression guarded. Don't touch that. But it was too late. Ethan had already unfolded the paper, his eyes widening as he scanned its contents. Daniel, have you read this? Ethan's voice shook. Daniel frowned, moving closer. Read what? Ethan held out the letter. It's from Dad, addressed to both of us. He explains everything. Why he pushed me away. Why he kept us apart. It wasn't entirely my fault, Daniel. Dad had his own agenda all along. Daniel snatched the letter, his face paling as he read. This can't be real. Why would he do this to us? Ethan's mind raced, pieces of a long-forgotten puzzle clicking into place. He always said I had to make my own way, that I couldn't rely on family connections. I thought he was just being tough, but this, he deliberately drove a wedge between us. The brothers locked eyes, a lifetime of misunderstanding hanging in the balance. I should have tried harder to stay in touch, Ethan admitted. But I swear, Daniel, I never meant to abandon you. I thought you were better off without me. Daniel's shoulders sagged, and I thought you'd chosen wealth over family, that you didn't care about us anymore. Max tugged on Daniel's sleeve. Does this mean Uncle Ethan can visit more often now? Daniel hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yeah, but I think it does. As they gathered around the dinner table, the tension began to thaw. Ethan found himself laughing at Max's jokes, marveling at how much the boy reminded him of Daniel at that age. But even as warmth bloomed in his chest, a nagging voice whispered that he didn't deserve this second chance. His phone buzzed incessantly, reminders of the cutthroat world he'd left behind for the evening. Everything okay? Daniel asked, noticing Ethan's distraction. Ethan forced a smile. Just work. Nothing that can't wait. But as the night wore on, that uneasy feeling grew. Ethan knew the road to reconciliation wouldn't be easy. He had a lot to make up for, and his carefully constructed world of wealth and power suddenly felt hollow in comparison to the genuine connection he'd glimpsed here. As he prepared to leave, Ethan found himself lingering in the living room, studying the photos that lined the walls. His gaze landed on a picture of a beautiful woman with Max's eyes. That's my mom, Max said softly, appearing at Ethan's side. Dad says she's watching over us from heaven now. Ethan's throat tightened. I'm sure she is, buddy. I wish I'd had the chance to know her. Daniel joined them, his expression unreadable. Lily would have liked you, I think. She was always pushing me to reach out, to try and mend things between us. Ethan's heart clenched. I'm sorry I never got the chance to meet her, to be there for you when she passed. Daniel nodded, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. Well, you're here now. That's a start. As Ethan prepared to leave, Max threw his arms around him in a fierce hug. Promise you'll come back soon, Uncle Ethan? Ethan met Daniel's gaze over Max's head, seeing his own uncertainty reflected there. I promise, Max. We have a lot of lost time to make up for. Driving back to his mansion, Ethan felt the weight of that promise settle on his shoulders. He had glimpsed a world of genuine connection and love, so different from the cold, competitive realm he'd built his life around. His phone buzzed again, a message from his assistant flashing across the screen. Urgent meeting tomorrow. Caldwell Industries making aggressive moves. Ethan's jaw clenched. Victor Caldwell had been a thorn in his side for years, always looking for ways to undermine Ethan's success. Now it seemed he was making another play. As Ethan pulled into his driveway, he found himself at a crossroads. The path to reconnecting with his family wouldn't be easy, especially with the demands of his business looming large. But for the first time in years, Ethan felt a flicker of something he'd long thought extinguished: hope. He had a chance to rewrite his story, to be the brother and uncle he should have been all along. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges both personal and professional. But as Ethan entered his empty mansion, he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't letting his family slip away again, no matter the cost. Ethan's fingers hovered over his phone, Max's contact information glowing on the screen. He'd promised to visit again soon, but 2 weeks had passed in a blur of meetings and crisis management. The thought of disappointing his newfound family gnawed at him. He hit call. Before he could second-guess himself, Max's excited voice burst through the speaker. "Uncle Ethan, are you coming over? How about I pick you up from school today? We could grab ice cream if it's okay with your dad." A muffled conversation in the background. Then Max returned. "Dad says it's fine. See you at 3. Ethan's chest lightened. He had a few hours before he needed to leave. Plenty of time to handle the latest fire at work. His office door flew open, his assistant's face pale. "Mr. Granger, Caldwell Industries, just announced a hostile takeover of our biggest client." The lightness evaporated. Victor Caldwell. Of course. Ethan's jaw clenched. "Get legal on the phone. Now." Hours blurred together as Ethan fought to salvage the deal. His phone chimed 2:45 p.m. He cursed, grabbing his keys. The elementary school bustled with activity as Ethan pulled up. Max's face lit up when he spotted the sleek sports car. "Uncle Ethan, you came." Max bounded over, backpack bouncing. Ethan's stress melted at the sight of his nephew's gap-toothed grin. "I promised, didn't I? How about that ice cream?" As they settled into a booth at the local creamery, Max's spoon paused halfway to his mouth. "Uncle Ethan, how come you never visited before?" The innocent question hit like a punch to the gut. Ethan swallowed hard. "Made some mistakes, Max. I thought work was more important than family. I was wrong." Max nodded solemnly. "Dad says everyone makes mistakes sometimes. The important thing is to try and fix them. Your dad's a smart man." Ethan ruffled Max's hair. "I'm trying to fix things now. I hope you'll give me a chance." Max grinned, ice cream smeared across his chin. "Of course. Your family." The simplicity of a child's forgiveness threatened to undo Ethan completely. They pulled up to Daniel's house, Max chattering about his day. Daniel stood on the porch, his expression guarded. "Thanks for bringing him home." Daniel's tone was neutral. "Want to stay for dinner?" Ethan's phone vibrated. Another crisis at work, no doubt. He silenced it. "I'd like that." As they ate, Ethan noticed the deep circles under Daniel's eyes, the way his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. "Everything okay?" Ethan ventured. Daniel sighed. "Just a lot on my plate. The youth center where Lily volunteered is struggling. I've been trying to help, but—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "I could help," Ethan offered. "Financially, I mean. It's the least I could do." Daniel's eyes flashed. "We don't need your charity." "It's not charity," Ethan insisted. "It's family helping family. Let me do this, please." Before Daniel could respond, Max piped up. "Can we go to the center tomorrow, Dad? Show Uncle Ethan around." The brothers locked eyes over Max's head. A silent understanding passed between them. "Sure, buddy." Daniel relented. "We can do that." The next afternoon found them at the rundown community center. A maternal woman with silver hair greeted them warmly. "Daniel, and this must be your brother." She extended a hand to Ethan. "I'm Mrs. Thompson, the director. Lily spoke of you often." Ethan's eyebrows shot up. "She did." Mrs. Thompson nodded. "Oh yes. She always hoped you'd reconnect with the family someday." A lump formed in Ethan's throat. He'd missed so much. As they toured the facility, The extent of its needs became clear. Leaky roof, outdated equipment, peeling paint. Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. "I want to help," he announced. "Whatever you need, repairs, new programs, anything." Mrs. Thompson's eyes welled up. "That's very generous, but dash." "No buts," Ethan insisted. This place meant a lot to Lily. "It's important to Max and Daniel. That makes important to me." Daniel's expression softened. "You sure about this?" Ethan nodded. "Absolutely." As they left the center, Ethan's phone rang. Victor Caldwell's name flashed on the screen. He declined the call. "Everything all right?" Daniel asked. Ethan forced a smile. "Nothing I can't handle." But as the days passed, it became clear that wasn't true. Victor's attacks on Ethan's company grew more aggressive. Every time Ethan tried to focus on his family, another crisis pulled him away. One afternoon, Ethan sat in a tense board meeting, half listening to his CFO's dire predictions. His phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Max's school play tonight. He's hoping you'll be there." Ethan's stomach dropped. He'd completely forgotten. "I have to go," he announced, standing abruptly. "Family emergency." He ignored the shocked faces of his executives as he bolted from the room. Ethan slipped into the school auditorium just as the lights dimmed. He spotted Daniel in the crowd, relief washing over his brother's face as Ethan took the seat next to him. "Didn't think you'd make it," Daniel whispered. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." As Max took the stage, dressed as a lopsided tree, Ethan's heart swelled with a pride he'd never known before. This, he realized, was what truly mattered. The next morning, Ethan strode into his office with renewed purpose. He'd neglected his company for too long, letting Victor gain the upper hand. It was time to fight back. He called an emergency meeting, laying out a bold strategy to counter Victor's moves. His team, energized by his passion, threw themselves into the work. For weeks, Ethan burned the candle at both ends. Days at the office, evenings with Daniel and Max. He was exhausted but determined to prove he could balance both worlds. It all came crashing down on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Ethan sat across from Victor in a conference room, the air thick with tension. What was supposed to be a negotiation had devolved into a shouting match. "You're finished, Granger," Victor snarled. "I'm going to bury you and that pathetic excuse for a company." Ethan's fist connected with Victor's jaw before he realized what he was doing. Chaos erupted as the men grappled, years of rivalry exploding into violence. Security dragged them apart, but the damage was done. Victor's eyes gleamed with malicious triumph. "You just made this personal," he hissed. "I'm going to destroy everything you care about. Your company, your reputation, even that precious new family of yours." Ice flooded Ethan's veins. "Leave him out of this." Victor's laugh was cruel. "Too late for that. Did you really think I wouldn't notice your sudden interest in family? I've been watching you, Ethan. I know all about your little redemption arc." Ethan's mind raced. How much did Victor know? "Oh, and one more thing," Victor added as he was led away. "You might want to ask your dear brother about those messages his wife sent you before she died. The ones you never received." Ethan's world tilted on its axis. What was Victor talking about? That evening, Ethan showed up at Daniel's house unannounced. His brother took one look at his face and ushered him inside. "What happened?" Daniel asked, concern etched across his features. Ethan's voice was raw. "Did Lily try to contact me? Before she died?" Daniel's sharp intake of breath was answer enough. "How did you know about that?" "Victor Caldwell." Ethan spat the name like a curse. "He said something about messages I never received." Daniel sank onto the couch, his face ashen. "Lily, she wanted to reach out to you, to try and mend things between us. She sent emails, left voicemails. When you never responded, I thought." "You thought I didn't care," Ethan finished, his heart breaking. "Daniel, I swear I never got any of those messages. If I had dash." "I know." Daniel cut him off. "I believe you. But how did Caldwell know about this?" Ethan's mind whirled. "My assistant at the time. She must have intercepted the messages. And she was working for Victor." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Victor had been manipulating them for years, driving the wedge between the brothers even deeper. Daniel's fists clenched. That bastard. He's been playing us this whole time. Ethan nodded grimly. And now he's threatening to come after you and Max. I won't let that happen, Daniel. I'll walk away from everything if I have to, but I won't let him hurt our family again. The brothers locked eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As Ethan left Daniel's house that night, a weight lifted from his shoulders. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years, he wasn't alone. His phone buzzed, another threatening message from Victor. Ethan's jaw set with determination. It was time to end this, once and for all. He had a family to protect now, and nothing, not even Victor Caldwell, would stand in his way. The shrill ring of Ethan's phone pierced the pre-dawn silence. He fumbled for it, heart racing as he recognized the number. Mr. Granger, it's Thompson from accounting. We've got a problem. Ethan's stomach plummeted. How bad? Our biggest investor just pulled out. Stocks in freefall. Ethan bolted upright, sleep evaporating. I'll be there in 20. He dressed in a daze, mind whirling. This had Victor written all over it. As he reached for his keys, another call came through. Daniel. Ethan, it's Max. There's been an accident at the youth center. The world tilted on its axis. How bad? Daniel's voice cracked. They're taking him to Mercy General. Can you meet us there? Ethan's grip tightened on his phone. I'm on my way. He stood frozen, torn between two crises, family or business. The choice that had haunted him for years. This time, there was no hesitation. Thompson, handle things at the office. I've got a family emergency. The hospital waiting room buzzed with anxious energy. Ethan spotted Daniel pacing, his face ashen. What happened? Daniel ran a hand through his hair. Some equipment at the center collapsed. Max was underneath. They won't tell me anything. Ethan's chest constricted. He gripped Daniel's shoulder. He's tough, like his old man. He'll pull through. Hours crawled by. Ethan's phone vibrated incessantly, but he ignored it. Nothing mattered but the little boy behind those swinging doors. Finally, a doctor emerged. Mr. Granger, Max is stable. He's got a concussion and a broken arm, but he'll make a full recovery. The brothers sagged with relief. Daniel's eyes glistened. Can we see him? Max lay small and pale against the stark hospital sheets. His arm was encased in a bright blue cast, his forehead sporting an impressive bruise. Hey, slugger. Ethan's voice was gentle. You gave us quite a scare. Max's eyes fluttered open. Uncle Ethan, you came. Of course I did. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. A ghost of a smile touched Max's lips. Dad says that's just an expression. Horses can't really dash. Sure, save your strength, buddy. Daniel smoothed Max's hair. You need to rest. As Max drifted off, Ethan turned to his brother. I'm going to make some calls. We're going to fix that youth center, make it safer than Fort Knox. Daniel's brow furrowed. Ethan, you don't have to dash. I want to. For Max. For Lily. Something shifted in Daniel's eyes. A flicker of the trust they'd once shared. Over the next few days, Ethan threw himself into fundraising for the youth center. He called in every favor, leveraged every connection. His own company teetered on the brink, but he couldn't bring himself to care. Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened as Ethan presented her with the final tally. Mr. Granger, this is… I don't know what to say. Say you'll let us help rebuild. Make it a place Lily would be proud of. Mrs. Thompson's hand trembled as she took the check. Lily always said you had a good heart, beneath it all. I'm glad she was right. As word of Ethan's generosity spread, something unexpected happened. Investors who'd been scared off by Victor's machinations began trickling back. Ethan's reputation for cutthroat business practices was being replaced by something new, something human. But Victor wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Ethan was leaving the hospital after visiting Max when a familiar figure stepped out of the shadows. How touching. The prodigal uncle, playing happy families. Ethan's jaw clenched. What do you want, Victor? Victor's smile was shark-like. Just admiring your handiwork. Tell me, does Daniel know about the corners you cut to build your empire? The lives you ruined? Ice flooded Ethan's veins. That's ancient history. Is it? I wonder what your dear brother would think if he knew the truth. How you clawed your way to the top, stepping on anyone who got in your way, including him. Ethan lunged, slamming Victor against the wall. Leave my family out of this. Victor didn't flinch. Too late for that. You made this personal, remember? Now I'm going to take everything from you. Your company, your reputation, and that precious new family of yours. Ethan's fist connected with Victor's jaw. The older man stumbled, then came back swinging. They grappled in the dim parking garage, years of rivalry exploding into violence. A security guard's shout broke them apart. Victor wiped blood from his lip, eyes gleaming with malice. This isn't over, Granger. Not by a long shot. Ethan watched him go, heart pounding. He'd worked so hard to bury his past, to become someone worthy of Daniel and Max's trust. Now it was all unraveling. He couldn't let that happen. He would. The next morning, Ethan strode into Daniel's kitchen, determination etched on his face. We need to talk. Daniel looked up from his coffee, concern creasing his brow. What's wrong? Ethan took a deep breath. There are things about my past, things I'm not proud of. But before Victor can twist them, I need you to hear the truth. From me. Over the next hour, Ethan laid bare the ugliest parts of his history. The deals made in smoky back rooms, the rivals crushed beneath his ambition. With each revelation, he watched something die in Daniel's eyes. When he finished, silence stretched between them. Say something, please. Daniel's voice was raw. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm still your brother. I'm still the man who's been trying to make things right. Daniel stood, his chair scraping against the floor. Are you? Or is this just another game? Another way to manipulate people? Daniel, no. I swear, Dash. I think you should go. Ethan's heart shattered. Daniel, please. We can fix this. But Daniel had already turned away, shoulders rigid with pain and betrayal. As Ethan left, he caught sight of Max watching from the stairs, confusion etched on his young face. The weight of what he'd lost threatened to crush him. He'd tried to outrun his past, but it had finally caught up with him. And now, he stood to lose everything that mattered. Back at his office, Ethan found chaos. His assistant, pale-faced, thrust a stack of papers at him. Sir, the board is calling for your resignation. There are rumors, leaked documents. Ethan scanned the headlines, his stomach turning. Every dirty deal, every questionable decision from his climb to the top, splashed across the business pages. Victor had made good on his threats. As Ethan's world crumbled around him, a spark of defiance ignited. He'd clawed his way to the top once. He could do it again, but this time, he'd do it right. He picked up the phone, dialing a number he'd sworn never to use. It's Granger. I need your help. The voice on the other end was gruff. Thought you said you'd never call in this favor. Things change. I'm ready to burn it all down. A low chuckle. Now you're speaking my language. Ethan hung up, a grim smile playing at his lips. Victor thought he'd won, but the game was far from over. As night fell, Ethan drove to the outskirts of town. A nondescript warehouse loomed before him. He punched in a code, the doors sliding open with a hiss. Inside, a wall of screens flickered to life. Years of dirt he'd collected on his rivals. Insurance against a day he hoped would never come. He'd built his empire on secrets and lies. Now he'd use those same weapons to bring it all crashing down. And maybe, just maybe, he'd find redemption in the ashes. Ethan worked through the night, piecing together a web of evidence that would shake the business world to its core. Victor's machinations, the board's complicity, his own misdeeds, all of it laid bare. As dawn broke, he sat back, exhausted but grimly satisfied. One press of a button, and it would all be over. His career, his reputation, everything he'd spent decades building, but also Victor's. And in that destruction, maybe he could find a way to rebuild, to become the man his family deserved. His finger hovered over the send key. In that moment, his phone buzzed. Daniel's number flashed on the screen. Ethan's heart leapt into his throat. He answered, voice hoarse. Daniel. It's Max. Daniel's voice was tight with worry. He's asking for you. I think we both need you here. Ethan's eyes burned. I'm on my way. He looked at the screens one last time, then hit send. Whatever came next, he'd face it with his family by his side. As Ethan drove to the hospital, a weight lifted from his shoulders. For the first time in years, he felt truly free. The road ahead would be difficult, but he was ready to face it. He had a second chance. And this time, he wouldn't waste it. Ethan's world imploded with a single headline. Granger Industries faces collapse amid scandal. His phone erupted with calls from panicked investors and furious board members. He ignored them all, his eyes fixed on the television screen where Victor Caldwell's smug face dominated the news. It's a sad day for the business world, Victor intoned, false sympathy dripping from every word. Ethan Granger's fall from grace serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition. Ethan's fist connected with the power button, plunging the room into silence. He slumped onto his leather couch, head in his hands. Everything he'd built, everything he'd sacrificed for, gone in an instant. A tentative knock at the door roused him. His assistant, Sarah, poked her head in. Mr. Granger, there's someone here to see you. Ethan waved her off. Not now, Sarah. I can't dash. It's your brother, sir, Daniel. Ethan's head snapped up. Hope flared in his chest, only to be extinguished by the cold fury in Daniel's eyes as he strode into the office. So it's true. Daniel spat. Everything Victor said about you. The lies, the manipulation, all of it. Ethan stood, hands raised placatingly. Daniel, please, let me explain dash. Explain what? How you built your empire on the backs of people like me. How you let me believe for years that you'd abandoned us when really, you were just too busy climbing over anyone who got in your way. Each word landed like a physical blow. Ethan struggled to find his voice. I never meant to hurt you, any of you. I thought I was protecting you from Dash. From what? The truth. Daniel's laugh was bitter. Well, congratulations. The truth's out now, and look where it's gotten us. Ethan took a step forward. We can fix this. Together, we can Dash. No. Daniel's voice was ice. There is no we anymore, Ethan. I want you out of our lives. For good this time. The door slammed behind him, leaving Ethan alone in the wreckage of his life. Hours blurred together as Ethan wandered his empty mansion. Calls went unanswered, emails unread. What was the point? He'd lost everything that mattered. As dawn broke, Ethan found himself in his home office, staring at an old photo of himself and Daniel as kids. They were grinning, arms slung around each other's shoulders. When had it all gone so wrong? His gaze drifted to the safe, hidden behind a painting. Inside lay the fruits of years of paranoia, dirt on every major player in the business world, including Victor. Insurance, he'd told himself. Protection against a day he hoped would never come. That day had arrived. With trembling hands, Ethan opened the safe. He had one last card to play, one final chance to make things right. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Ethan called in every favor, leveraged every connection he had left. By the time he was done, a tidal wave of information was poised to crash over the business world. He sat at his desk, finger hovering over the send button that would release it all. Victor's machinations, the board's complicity, his own misdeeds, all of it laid bare for the world to see. One press, and it would all be over. His career, his reputation, but also Victor's. And in that destruction, maybe he could find a way to rebuild, to become the man his family deserved. Ethan took a deep breath and hit send. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. News outlets exploded with revelations of corporate malfeasance on a scale never before seen. Victor Caldwell's empire crumbled overnight, taking half of Wall Street with it. Ethan watched it all unfold from a dingy motel room on the outskirts of town. His phone lay silent, no frantic calls from lawyers or PR teams. He'd cut all ties, disappeared into the ether. As night fell, a knock at the door startled him from his reverie. He opened it cautiously, shock rippling through him at the sight of Daniel standing there. "How did you find me?" Daniel's smile was wry. "You're not the only one with connections, big brother." Ethan stepped back, allowing Daniel to enter. An awkward silence stretched between them. "I saw the news," Daniel finally said. "What you did, exposing everything like that. Why?" Ethan met his brother's gaze. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because I'm tired of living with secrets and lies. And because I hoped it might be a first step towards making amends. With you. With Max." Daniel's expression softened. "It's a start. But Ethan, there's still so much dash." "I know." Ethan's voice cracked. "I know I've got a long way to go. But I want to try, Daniel. Really try this time. No more half measures. No more putting business before family. If you'll let me." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he extended his hand. "One step at a time, brother. One step at a time." Ethan grasped it, tears pricking at his eyes. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. The next few months were a whirlwind of change. Ethan sold his mansion, donating most of the proceeds to charities supporting victims of corporate fraud. He moved into a modest apartment near Daniel and Max, throwing himself into rebuilding not just his relationship with them, but with the community as a whole. The youth center became his passion project. He worked alongside Daniel and Mrs. Thompson, pouring his energy and resources into creating a safe haven for kids like Max. It was backbreaking work, but for the first time in years, Ethan felt truly alive. As summer turned to fall, the day of the center's grand reopening arrived. Ethan stood back, watching with pride as families streamed through the doors. Max darted from activity to activity, his laughter infectious. "You did good, brother." Daniel appeared at his side, clapping him on the shoulder. "Lily would be proud." Ethan's chest tightened at the mention of his sister-in-law. "I wish I'd known her." "Me too." Daniel's voice was wistful. "But in a way, you're getting to know her now. Through this place. Through the impact it's having. It's everything she dreamed of." Their moment was interrupted by Max bounding over, brandishing a crumpled photograph. "Look what I found in one of the old boxes. It's Grandpa." Ethan took the photo, his blood running cold as he recognized the setting. Their father stood in an opulent office, shaking hands with a much younger Victor Caldwell. "Daniel." Ethan's voice was strained. "Have you ever seen this before?" Daniel leaned in, his brow furrowing. "No, wait. Is that Victor?" The brothers exchanged a loaded glance. All the secrets, all the manipulation. It ran deeper than either of them had imagined. "We should talk," Ethan said quietly. "There's more to this story than we knew." Daniel nodded, his jaw set. "Later. For now, let's just enjoy this moment. We've earned it." As the day wound down, Ethan and Daniel found themselves alone outside the center. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, a fitting end to a day of new beginnings. "You know," Ethan mused, "I spent my whole life chasing after Dad's approval, his legacy. Turns out, the real inheritance he left us wasn't money or success." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Oh, it was this mess." Ethan gestured broadly, "This tangle of secrets and lies that we had to wade through to find each other again." A beat of silence. Then Daniel burst out laughing. "Well, at least we know how to clean up now." Ethan joined in, the laughter feeling foreign but welcome. As it subsided, he turned to his brother, his expression serious. "Thank you, Daniel, for giving me another chance. I know I don't deserve it, but I promise you I won't waste it." Daniel's smile was warm. "That's what family does, Ethan. We forgive, we heal, We move forward. As they walked back into the center, Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still wounds to heal, trusts to rebuild. But for the first time in years, he felt hope. He had his family back. He had a purpose beyond the pursuit of wealth and power. And most importantly, he had a chance to become the man he should have been all along. As Max's excited voice called out to them, Ethan and Daniel shared a smile. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As brothers, as family. The cycle of deceit that had defined their lives for so long was finally broken. In its place, a new legacy was taking root. One built on honesty, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Ethan took a deep breath, savoring the moment. The past couldn't be changed, but the future? That was theirs to shape, one day at a time.